Welcome. Previously, we've talked about the quadratic function and how to write it in standard form and then graph it. We're going to use another method of finding the vertex in this video, and we're also going to talk about x-intercepts as well. But if we use the process of completing the square, then we could find the vertex using this following procedure. The first step is to identify a, b, and c. Again, a is the number in front of the x squared, b is the number in front of the x, and c is our constant. Then we're going to use this formula, negative b over 2a. This gives us the x coordinate of the vertex. So we're going to use this formula, x equals negative b over 2a. And then to find the y value, we're going to find f of negative b over 2a. That's it. We're not going to use completing the square. We're just going to use negative b over 2a to find x, and then we're going to plug it in to find y. So this is another way of writing the vertex. Again, the x value is negative b over 2a, and the y value is f of negative b over 2a. Now again, I did mention that this is obtained from the process of completing the square. The x value is the number that's inside the parentheses, the opposite of the number inside the parentheses actually, our h, and our k is a number outside the parentheses. So you could also use this formula for a c minus b squared all over 4a for the y value. I just wrote it there. I don't plan on using it in the video, but I just wanted you to know that that's also an option. Okay, so here's our first example. We have a parabola or a quadratic function, f of x equals 2x squared minus 8x plus 5. We're going to find the vertex, so you just have to remember the formula, negative b over 2a. You can either write the negative in front of the fraction or in the numerator. All right, step one, identify a, b, and c. Well, a is 2, b is negative 8, and c is 5. Now plug it into the formula, negative b over 2a. So where you see a b, replace it with negative 8, and the a, replace it with 2. In the numerator, that gives us negative 8, which is positive 8, and the denominator is 4, and then that equals 2. So that is the x value of our vertex. Now we need to find the y value. So find f of negative b over 2a. That just means use the answer we got for x and plug it in. So we're going to find f of 2. So plug in a 2 everywhere. So 2 times 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 5. Work that out, and you should get negative 3. Okay, that's our y value. So there's our vertex, 2, negative 3. Now, if we wanted to graph this parabola, we would make a table, and 2 would be in the middle, the x value, and then pick numbers to the left and right of 2. So you would pick 1 and 0 on the left, and 3 and 4. We're not asked to do that here, but just think about that. All right, here's another one, very similar. Go ahead and pause the video, work it out, and come back when you're done. All right, A, B, and C. A is 3, B is negative 18, and C is 7. We actually don't use C, but we're writing it down anyways. So x equals negative b over 2a. That's minus negative 18 over 2 times 3. 18 over 6, which is 3. Now we find the y value. Plug it in. So f of 3. Remember to do the exponents first and then the multiplication. So you should get a negative 20 when you're done. All right, so our vertex here is 3, negative 20. All right, here's our next one. This one is going to have fractions. It's okay. So identify A, B, and C. So negative 6, 7, and negative 2. So negative B over 2A. That'll give us negative 7 over 2 times negative 6, which is negative 7 over negative 12. Whenever you have two negatives, the two negatives cancel. So you're left with 7/12. All right, find the y value. So plug it in. So just use your calculator. That's the easiest way to do that. Okay. And you should get 1 over 24 when you type that into your calculator. So our vertex is 7/12, 1 over 24. All right, here's our next problem. It's a graph. Again, we're not going to use completing the square here. We're just going to go ahead and find the vertex. So negative b over 2a. A is negative 2, b is 12, c is negative 17. So negative 12 over 2 times negative 2, which is negative 12 over negative 4, which equals 3. So that's the number that's going to go in the middle of our table. You could plug it in, but on most calculators or the calculator that we're using, it'll find all the y values for us. So we're going to choose x equals 3, and then we're going to choose 2 to the left and 2 to the right. So 3 goes in the middle, 1 and 2, and 4 and 5. Use your calculator to give you the other values. And here's our numbers: negative 7, negative 1, 1, negative 1, and negative 7. Plot your points. And you can see that this parabola does open downward, and that makes sense because the value of a was negative. It was a negative 2. That tells us that this parabola opens down. If it was a positive value in front of the x squared, the parabola would open up. And it's a little narrower than our basic function, f of x equals x squared. All right, another graph. Again, find our vertex. In this case, a is equal to 1 because there isn't a number in front of the x squared. So a is 1, b is 6, and c is 7. So that gives us negative 3 for x value. We're going to make our table. Negative 3 is going to go in the middle, then 2 to the left, 2 to the right. So to the left of negative 3 would be negative 4, negative 5. To the right of negative 3 would be negative 2, negative 1. Okay, pause the video, plug that into your calculator. Okay, now we could plot our coordinates and draw your graph. This parabola opens up because the value in front of x squared was positive, a 1. Okay, here's our next topic in this video. We're going to talk about x-intercepts. X-intercepts means where does it cross the x-axis? If it does cross the x-axis. So here I have three figures, figure 1, figure 2, and figure 3. In figure 1, there are two x-intercepts. It crosses the x-axis twice. In figure 2, it has one x-intercept. It intersects the x-axis just at one point, which is the vertex. And in figure 3, it has no x-intercepts. To find x-intercepts, you set the function equal to 0 and solve the resulting equation for x. So in figure 1, we would get two solutions. In figure 2, we would get no solution. We would get one solution. And in figure 3, we would get no solution. So a no solution would mean if we tried to solve it, we would get a negative under the radical. So you would get a value of I, some complex number. That tells you that there's no real solutions. There's still a solution, it's just a complex solution, which doesn't apply here as far as x-intercepts. Okay, here's our first example. Find the x-intercepts of f of x equals 2x squared minus 5x minus 12. First thing is set it equal to 0. So that's it. We just set it equal to 0. 2x squared minus 5x minus 12 equals 0. We've done this before. We need to factor it. So multiply the first number and the last number. I'm going to factor it here, but you could also use the quadratic formula. I think I'm faster doing factoring, so that's what I would do personally, but if you think you're faster using the quadratic formula, that's not a problem. It doesn't say anything in the directions about which method to use. All right, multiply first number and last number and find the pair that will subtract to be 5. So that would be 3 and 8. Positive 3, negative 8. From the first pair, factor out an x. From the second pair, factor out a negative 4. Also, I put the 3 first. If you wanted to put the negative 8 first, you could. Just make sure you have the correct signs, a negative 8x and a positive 3x. So factor out an x from the first pair. That gives you 2x plus 3. Negative 4 from the second pair. Again, you get 2x plus 3. Put it together. 2x plus 3 times x minus 4. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So on the left we get negative 3 halves, and on the right we get 4. Those are the values of our x-intercepts, the x values. They're also called zeros, by the way. So we'll write it in coordinate form, negative 3 halves, comma 0, and 4, comma 0. All right, here's another problem. Very similar to the last one. Might want to pause the video and work it out. This one does have a negative in front of the x squared. So we usually don't want a negative You could factor out the -1, or you could also multiply both sides by -1. That's what I'm going to do here, is multiply both sides by -1, which is legal. As long as you don't multiply both sides by 0, that's the only thing we can't do. But multiplying by both sides by any number is legal. So this will get rid of the negative in front of the x squared. All right, now we could factor it. Let's see, which pair will subtract to be 13? Right, the 2 and 15, not the 3 and 10. 3 and 10 will add to be 13. All right, it's got to be a +2 and -15. Factor out an x from the first pair, -5 from the second pair. So we have 3x + 2 times x - 5, set them both equal to 0, and solve each of them. -2/3 on the left, and 5 on the right. So here are our two intercepts, -2/3, 0, and 5, 0. Example 8, x squared plus 5x minus 3. Set it equal to 0. There's no number in front of the x squared, so it's a 1. 1 times -3 is -3. The only factors of 3 are 1 times 3, and that's not going to subtract to give us a 5. So this does not factor. What do we do if it doesn't factor? Right, we have to use the quadratic formula. All right, so we still identify A, B, and C. A is 1, B is 5, C is -3. So replace those numbers into our formula and simplify. So you should get -5 plus and minus √37/2. Rewrite it in coordinate form. So -5 minus √37/2, 0, and -5 plus √37 all over 2, 0. Okay, we're going to just do one word problem here. There's lots of applications. First, let's think about a parabola. It either goes up or goes down. If the parabola goes up, then the vertex is a minimum. If the parabola goes down, then its vertex gives a maximum. All right, so let's think about that. If they're asking for a minimum, that means the parabola has to open up. If they're asking for a maximum, that means the parabola has to open down. And the x value, it gives you the x value where the maximum or minimum occurs, but not the maximum or minimum. The minimum or maximum is the f of x, or the y value. Okay, here's our last example. The height of a projectile fired, so think about something that's fired vertically up into the air. It has an initial velocity of 240 feet per second. And it's a function of time t. So t stands for time. And it's in seconds because it says per second. So in this problem, t is like our x. And we're given the function h of t equals -16t squared plus 240t. I know I changed up some of the letters. Instead of f of x, I used h of t. And instead of x, I used t. The important thing to realize here is it's still a quadratic function. There's no c. Our value of c is 0. But as long as it has a variable squared, then it's a quadratic function. It's a parabola. Okay, now it's got a negative in front of the variable squared. Does that mean this parabola opens up or opens down? Right, because there's a negative, it opens down. So that means there's a maximum, which is the highest point. So we want to find the maximum. Okay, we still need to find the vertex. So instead of x equals negative b over 2a, we're going to use t equals negative b over 2a. Let's write down our a, b, and c. Okay, I made a little note here. A is negative, therefore it opens down. We have a maximum. The maximum would correspond to the function's maximum height, the t value of the vertex. It gives the time it takes to reach the maximum height. And the y value does give the maximum height. All right, so A is negative 16. B is 240. We don't have to know anything about physics. We just use our numbers, right? We're not doing, it's okay if you don't know about gravity or velocity or anything like that. All we're doing is we're saying, okay, we know this is a quadratic function, and we're going to find the vertex. A is negative 16 and B is 240. All right, let's use our formula, our handy dandy formula. I'm going to write it as t equals negative b over 2a. All right, so plug those numbers in and then work it out. Let's see, 240 over 32, they're two negatives, so it turns out to be a positive. And reduce it, you could write it as 7.5 or 7.5 or 15 over 2, however you want to write it. So that's time, right? That's telling us that it takes 7.5 seconds to get to the top. So we need to know how high it is. So we're going to plug it in, just like we were doing before. We're trying to find the vertex, so plug it in. So plug in 7.5 into your calculator. Negative 16 times 7.5 squared plus 240 times 7.5, and that should give you 900. That makes more sense. So the answer is 900 feet. It's feet because it says feet per second. All right, that's it for this video. I'll see you here for the next one. Have a good day.